If everything around you is vibration, what force are you unconsciously sending into the field? There is a mirror so ancient, so silent. It reflects not your image, but your essence. It does not hang on walls. It doesn't need silver or glass. It lives in what you call reality, and it reads you before you speak, before you move, before you even think. The ancients knew it as the living field, a space not outside you, but responding to you in real time. Thoth whispered of it through symbols. Hermes veiled it in metaphor. Today science calls it the quantum field, but names don't matter here. What matters is the resonance you emit into it, because it listens, it rearranges, it obeys your frequency. But what if the frequency you're emitting isn't yours? What if your field has been echoing inherited pain, silent fear, forgotten timelines, instead of your original tone? Pause. Feel this. Your vibration is not your mood. Your vibration is your instruction to the universe. Every time you speak, feel, decide, you encode the mirror. But few remember how to encode with intention. We were taught to speak louder, not clearer, to act faster, not truer, to react, not resonate. And yet the field waits, not for perfection, but for coherence. You may think you're stuck, but the field sees movement. It mirrors your core tone, not your surface stories. So, what are you really transmitting? Perhaps this explains the patterns that return without invitation, the people who carry the same lesson in different masks, the situations that loop, not because of karma, but because of unresolved frequency. The field isn't testing you, it's tuning you. There's no punishment, only reflection. No destiny, only vibration in motion. That's why the ancients didn't pray, they aligned. They didn't plead, they encoded. Thoth didn't write manuals, he left keys. 3 hidden forces that, when activated, allow you to shape your field consciously, not by force, but by frequency. These are not metaphors, they're vibrational mechanics. And once you start using them, life will stop happening to you and begin responding to you. But before we open the first code, we need to ask something deeper. What frequency are you using to observe your life? The experiment of the double slit revealed something astounding. Particles change behavior depending on how we look at them. Reality itself responds to observation, not just to presence, but to perspective. This means your perception isn't passive, it's creative. You're not just watching reality, you're writing it every day through your vibrational lens, but no one gave you the manual until now. So here is the first step back to your original code. Let go of the idea that you need to be fixed. You're not broken, you're broadcasting. And what you're broadcasting and is being built in real time. Sit with that. Let it breathe inside your chest. Maybe this is why you found this transmission. Not because you were seeking answers, but because your field was ready to remember, ready to resonate again with your true tone, the one before the noise, the one before forgetting. And if some part of you already feels this truth, then you're not just watching this, you're participating in it. You are not here by accident, and neither is what surrounds you. There's an ancient mirror, and it's listening. The question is, are you ready to speak in frequency? If this reflection is already moving something inside, then follow the pull. Subscribe not for more content, but to align when the next code arrives. Next, we unlock the visible geometry of the invisible tone, the sound that shapes matter, the breath that builds structure, the symbol that sings the world into form. Cymatics. Wait until you see what your voice has been building. Sound doesn't disappear, it travels, it imprints, it creates. Every sound you've ever made, angry, joyful, honest, or silent, has moved through the air and left geometry in its wake. But you were never taught to see it. You were taught to speak, not to vibrate. The ancients knew something we forgot. That sound is not only expression, it's structure. That tone builds reality. This is where cymatics begins, the study of how vibration creates form, not poetically, literally. Place fine sand on a metal plate, run a single tone through it, and watch a sacred geometry emerge, imperfect, repeating, alive. Change the tone, and the pattern shifts instantly. The sound writes the shape, and this is not metaphor. This is the invisible becoming visible. This is vibration made flesh. So ask yourself, what shape has your voice been drawing? Not just your outer voice, but the inner tone you hum when you're alone. The frequency of your decisions, the sound behind your emotions. This is the cymatic cipher, the key that shows you don't just walk through form, you're generating it with every tone, every choice, every breath. What if your current life situation is not random, but the geometry of your most repeated frequency, the relationships, the obstacles, the openings, the loops, they are not just events, they are cymatic echoes, field responses to your tone. And the field is not punishing, it's printing. When you speak in complaint, you build distortion. When you move from fear, you reinforce fragmentation. But when you speak from essence, the field aligns. You've seen this, even without knowing. How one word spoken in presence can change a room. How someone's silence can carry more vibration than 1,000 voices. It's not about volume, it's about purity of tone. And tone is not what you say, it's what you carry while saying it. This is why the ancients used chants, tones, and mantras, not to sound spiritual, but to shape their field. They weren't praying, they were sculpting. When you understand cymatics, you stop trying to control reality and begin harmonizing with it. You become a tuning fork, you become a transmitter, you become aware. So now ask again, what frequency do your emotions carry? Because cymatics reveals this truth. Even suppressed emotion vibrates. You can hide your anger, but the field hears it. You can smile while feeling hollow, but the geometry speaks first. The sound beneath the mask always writes the pattern. That's why Thoth didn't say believe. He said vibrate, because vibration doesn't lie. It doesn't pretend, it simply builds. And this is your invitation to stop trying, to manifest from the mind, and start creating from frequency, to let your inner tone become clear, coherent, alive. Because once it is, your external reality has to follow. It's not personal, it's vibrational. This is why positive thinking alone doesn't work, because the field doesn't listen to thoughts and it listens to resonance. You can say abundance, but if you vibrate scarcity, the field echoes scarcity. You can chant peace, but if your tone is conflict, geometry follows suit. So what is your tone made of? What geometry are you drawing right now, even in silence? Breathe into that. Let the question resonate through your spine, because in the next breath, we open the first of the 3 hidden forces of Thoth, the first code, the first alignment, the first activation. It's not a ritual, it's not a technique. It's a frequency you've already known, but forgotten. And when you feel it again, you'll understand why the ancients never needed tools, only tone. So stay close. Let the mirror settle. Let the inner tone begin to shift. Because what comes next will not just change how you feel, it will change what your field begins to build. If this is starting to echo through something ancient inside, you wait until you hear the first force. You've used it before, you just didn't know you were. Like this video only if it activated something ancient. The first force is not out there. It's not something to invoke, summon, or chant. It's already active, but rarely remembered. Thoth encoded it through silence, not because it was a secret, but because it had to be felt. This first force is inner resonance, the frequency behind your presence. The tone that precedes your words. It's what the field hears in before you speak, before you act, before you even decide. When your inner resonance is scattered, you may say the right thing, do the right thing, visualize the right thing, but nothing lands, because the field doesn't mirror your intent, it mirrors your tone, and your tone is your true signature. This is why some people say nothing, but shift everything in a room. This is why others speak beautifully, and leave the space hollow. Your inner resonance carries your emotional truth. Not the surface emotion, but the frequency beneath it. And frequency is precise. The field doesn't decode confusion. It returns what's consistent. So, what are you resonating with? Do your words match your body? Does your desire match your vibration? You might think you're calling in clarity, but if you're resonating with doubt, you're asking in 2 directions. This is where misalignment begins, and where the first force comes alive. Because once your inner resonance aligns, your words stop being requests and become instructions. This is not about speaking louder, it's about speaking cleaner. Your tone either commands coherence or broadcasts static, and static attracts chaos. Not as punishment, but as pattern. Thoth didn't tell us to control our thoughts, he told us to align our vibration, because vibration is what commands the field. So how do you tune your inner resonance? Not by force, not by logic, but by honesty. When you admit what you're truly feeling, the distortion begins to dissolve. When you stop pretending to be high vibe, you finally create space for resonance to rise naturally, because resonance doesn't come from pretending light. It comes from integrating shadow. That's the paradox. The more real you become, the more aligned your frequency becomes. And alignment is the key. When your inner resonance is stable, decisions flow, people respond, life feels orchestrated, not random. You stop trying to manifest and start magnetizing, not with desire, but with coherence. Because your field stops saying, I want this, and starts saying, this is who I am. And the field replies, then this is what you shall receive. It's not magic. It's mathematics, vibrational calculus, but it begins here, with a tone, before rituals, before affirmations, before vision boards. Resonance is the soil, everything else is seed, and no matter what you plant, the soil decides how it grows. This is why monks spend years in silence, why the Hermetic path begins with listening, not to the world but to your own tone. So, stop now, just for a breath, and feel it. What is your tone saying? Right now, not your thoughts, not your goals, but your current frequency, because it's writing your geometry, and if you listen, you might already hear the next force approaching. It doesn't come in sound, it comes in sensation. It's not about what you feel, it's about how you feel it. And when we enter that, you'll understand the second force. If you're still here, maybe your code is already reactivating. Let your resonance guide the next breath, and stay tuned for the next force. Emotion is energy in motion, but most were taught to suppress it, judge it, control it. So what happens to motion when it has no permission to move? It becomes pressure, distortion, and eventually, illness. The second hidden force of Thoth is emotional alchemy, not the suppression of emotion, but the transformation of it into vibrational precision. Because the field doesn't hear your words, it hears your charge. Not just your sadness, but how you hold it. Not just your joy, but if it's clean or clinging. Your emotional state is not a flaw in manifestation, it's the very fuel of it, but only when felt with clarity, not chaos. You are told that anger is dangerous, that grief must be quiet, that fear means weakness, but every great initiate knew. The rawest emotions are gateways, not to reaction, but to coherence. When you suppress the fire, it burns within. When you direct it with awareness, it becomes creation. Emotional alchemy is not becoming positive, it's becoming precise. Feelings are frequencies. Each emotion has its own waveform, its own tone. Cymatics has shown that sound shapes matter, but so does emotion, because emotion carries energetic weight, and what carries weight carries influence in the field. Imagine your emotion as color in water. If it's cloudy, everything you pour into it becomes murky. If it's clear, your intention moves like light. This is the second force, not the removal of emotion, but its purification. You don't manifest in spite of your feelings, you manifest through them. Thoth encoded this not in language, but in the very structure of the tablets, where silence follows intensity, and symbols emerge only when the heart is calm. This force is activated in choice. When you choose to feel fully, but not become the feeling, you observe the sadness, but don't drown in it. You honor the anger, but don't act from it. This is not detachment, it's mastery, and mastery is magnetic. The field respects coherence even when it's intense. Raw truth carries more frequency than polished pretending. When your emotional field becomes clear, your manifestations arrive faster because they stop being filtered through confusion. This is why so many feel blocked. It's not that their desires are wrong, it's that their field is fragmented. Desire says one thing, emotion vibrates another. The result? Noise. But emotional alchemy brings signal. It creates a unified field. And in a unified field, reality responds quickly. So how do you begin? You don't need complex rituals. You need to feel what's actually there, not what you should feel. What's real? Feel it, name it, and then breathe into it. Ask, what is this emotion trying to move through me? What code is it carrying? Because no emotion arrives empty. Every feeling contains a message, a memory, a moment ready to be transmuted. And when you transmute, you don't just shift how you feel. You shift what the field reflects. You don't need to be high vibe. You need to be honest, because honesty is high vibration. And when your emotional energy becomes coherent, the first and second forces unite. Tone and charge become one, and this activates the third. It's not about how you feel, it's about how you direct the feeling. Direction is everything, and that is where the third force lives. Close your eyes for 3 seconds and notice which emotion is still resonating in your field. Now, type that word below. Don't think. Just let it through. That's the vibration your next shift begins with. If emotion is energy in motion, then direction is the hand on the wheel. This is the third hidden force of Thoth, the most overlooked and the most powerful, directional frequency. Because energy is everywhere, emotion is always moving. But what moves without direction scatters. The field doesn't respond to intensity alone. It responds to aimed intensity. Think of a laser. It's not more powerful than light. It's just more focused. And in the same way, your energy becomes transformative only when it's intentional. So ask, where are you pointing your frequency? Not your mind, not your words, your actual energetic compass. Because without direction, you loop, you repeat, you drift. The same lessons, the same people, the same sensations, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your frequency is spinning without a center. Direction creates gravity, and gravity pulls reality into orbit. Thoth encoded this in the symbol of the eye within the spiral. Awareness anchored in motion. When your field carries direction, everything begins to organize around you. Conversations become precise. Opportunities find their way in. Randomness fades into pattern, but most people don't choose their direction. They react. They let pain aim their energy. They let doubt steer the tone. They let fear write the coordinates. And the field, it obeys. It's not punishing. It's precise. So how do you shift? First, by choosing a direction that comes not from the mind, but from resonance. Don't ask, what do I want? Ask, what am I being pulled toward? Vibrationally. The pull is subtle, but once felt, it's unmistakable. It feels like clarity without logic, movement without reason, a knowing that has no explanation, only presence. That's your compass. Not what makes sense, what feels aligned. This force doesn't need plans, it needs commitment. Because once your direction is chosen, the field starts collapsing probabilities in your favor. Doors open, people shift. Time reorganizes, not because you forced it, but because your field stopped broadcasting ambiguity. Directional frequency is not about control, it's about coherence in motion. When all of you points in one direction, intention, emotion, tone, and presence, the quantum responds instantly. This is the architecture of manifestation, not wishful thinking, energetic geometry. So take a breath now. Slow, deep, real. Ask your field, what direction am I actually holding? Not what you're saying, what you're vibrating. Is your tone aligned with your vision? Is your energy leading or circling? Because you're not just a transmitter, you're a compass, and your field is listening. And here's the secret, you don't need to know the destination, you only need to hold the direction. The field will shape the path. When the ancients aligned with directional frequency, they didn't pray for outcomes, they became the path, and reality had no choice but to follow. So now, choose, not with your logic, with your frequency. Name your direction, hold it with presence, and let the field respond. Right now, write your chosen direction as one single word, not what you hope, what you claim. Type it below and let the field hear your tone. There is a gate in your body that doesn't open with movement, only with resonance. A crystalline portal that listens to vibration, responds to frequency, and filters what you call reality through a lens beyond time. It's not your eyes. It's not your mind, it's your pineal gland, the eye of Thoth, the throne of inner seeing, the temple's true altar. This gate is ancient, older than language, older than thought. It is the antenna that receives the field and simultaneously shapes it. When inactive, you live in reaction. When awakened, you begin to decode reality from the inside out. And that's when the three hidden forces of Thoth become more than concepts. They become currents flowing through this eye. Science speaks of the pineal gland in whispers as a calcified mystery. Hermeticists speak of it in codes as the seat of divine imagination. Yogis call it ajna, the third eye, the point where perception collapses into knowing. But all traditions agree, it is not just a gland, it is a gate. Why does this matter? Because when the pineal is cloudy, your perception becomes reactive. You interpret through filters, pain, trauma, beliefs. But when this gate is open, your entire field shifts. You begin to see beyond what is shown, hear what is unsaid, sense what is not visible. The pineal is not just mystical, it is anatomical. It contains crystalline structures, microcrystals that resonate, oscillate, emit. Under the right vibrational conditions, these crystals amplify your sensitivity to subtle fields, not fantasy, physics. And this is where the three forces converge. Inner resonance clears the signal. Emotional alchemy purifies the channel. Directional frequency focuses the beam. The pineal then becomes not just a receiver, but a projector. You stop simply witnessing reality. You begin broadcasting it. This is not metaphor. This is your inner cymatic device. Ancient Egypt placed great emphasis on the Eye of Horus, which was not just an image but a symbolic map of the pineal gland. In the Emerald Tablets, Thoth says, "Open the gateway within, and ye shall see worlds beyond shadow." This gateway opens through vibrational precision, not through effort. No amount of thinking activates the pineal, but resonance does, breath does, silence does. When your inner tone harmonizes with your direction, and your emotional field is clean, the gate responds, as if the temple itself were opening. You may begin to perceive not new information, but deeper truth in what you already know. Your Intuition sharpens, time softens, decisions become spontaneous and accurate. You no longer analyze reality, you interface with it. And this is where the field becomes intimate, because now you're not just sending signals outward, you're feeling the return currents with clarity. You see the geometry before it solidifies. You feel the energy of spaces before stepping in. You perceive the intention behind words, even in silence. This is not about being psychic. It's about being tuned enough to receive without distortion. Tuned enough to decode symbols in dreams, emotions in stillness, shifts in timelines. Your pineal gland is not just a tool, it is a doorway. And every time you honor your frequency, you polish that door. Every time you transmute emotion, you purify the lens. Every time you walk in direction, you calibrate the inner compass that governs what you see. Most people live like tourists in their own lives. They see what others see. They believe what is shown. They accept the visible as the limit. But you're being invited to become an architect of perception, not to create illusions, but to pierce them. Because when your pineal gate opens, your vision is no longer linear. It becomes layered, fractal, symbolic. You begin to feel how sound organizes thought, how light holds memory, how your body is a tuning system, not just a vessel. And from that state, you don't just remember who you are, you remember how to remember, because remembering is not thought. It's frequency reactivated. And the pineal is the organ of memory beyond mind. That's why Thoth said, "Hold the flame, and light shall return." It's not poetic, it's procedural. Breathe now, and imagine, what would shift if your perception was no longer reactive but intentional? What would you choose to see? What would dissolve? What new patterns would emerge? Because what you see, you energize. What you energize, what you expand. And what you expand becomes your world. You don't just perceive reality, you project it through the gate you forgot you had. Now remember, your pineal doesn't need fixing, it needs frequency. Revisit the last decision you made in confusion and replay it now through this gate. Then, choose again, from resonance. You've heard the truth before. Life is not linear, but that doesn't just mean time flows differently. It means reality itself follows the path of a spiral. Energy moves in curves, not straight lines. Everything that seems to returns deeper. Everything that repeats for integration. This is the essence of the Hermetic spiral, the invisible structure behind the visible world. It's not philosophy, it's a frequency pattern, found in galaxies, seashells, hurricanes, pine cones, your DNA, and your own electromagnetic field. And most importantly, in your body of vibration. The three hidden forces you've just remembered, resonance, alchemy, and direction, are not separate steps. They are currents in a spiral, moving, folding, looping into each other, like breath, like waves, like remembering itself. This is why, when you begin to embody one force, the others awaken. You hold inner resonance, your emotions clarify, you transmute your emotion, your direction sharpens, you walk in direction, your tone becomes coherent. Spiral. Thoth didn't teach in lines, he encoded in spirals. Every tablet leads back to the first. Every symbol unlocks itself from the inside. This is not random. It is the design of consciousness itself. You are not a straight path. You are a spiral of light, folding inward to expand outward. And when your spiral aligns, your field becomes magnetic, not temporarily, fundamentally. The Hermetic spiral exists within your toroidal field, the electromagnetic vortex that emanates from your heart. Modern science measures it. Ancient mystics lived by it. This field is not a metaphor. It is geometry in motion. It is the container through which you influence, attract, repel, and radiate. It spins, it breathes, it listens. When you are in resonance, your torus spins cleanly. When you hold emotional density, the spiral collapses. When your direction is fractured, the field disperses energy erratically. But when all three forces converge, the spiral activates, and when it does, you begin to experience reality differently. You feel it first as synchronicity, then as speed, then as grace. Things move not because you force them, but because your field becomes a spiral, strong enough to fold space toward you. This is what Thoth meant when he said, "As above, so below, as within, so without." He wasn't describing duality, he was describing resonance. Across spirals, the micro and the macro vibrating in mirrored rhythm. So ask, what spiral are you currently in? One of contraction or one of return? Because every pattern in your life is not a punishment. It's a spiral waiting for integration. Not everything that comes back is a failure. It may simply be asking to be seen from a higher octave. Same lesson, different ring of the spiral. This is the rhythm of mastery, not escaping cycles, but ascending them. And you do that not by effort, but by frequency. You meet the pattern not with resistance, but with presence. And in that presence, something shifts. The old response fades, a new energy enters, the spiral turns, and you move forward, not by escaping the loop, but by learning to rise within it. You are not stuck. You are spiraling. Let that be a relief. Let that be a release. The Hermetic spiral is your teacher, your ally, your map. And when you walk with it, everything in your field begins to spiral with you. Decisions become aligned, boundaries strengthen, desires purify. Your pineal perceives the pattern before it forms. The body becomes not a barrier, but a conduit. Your mind stops controlling and begins interpreting. Your field stops reacting and begins composing, because you become the spiral, not an observer of truth, a participant in its unfolding. And from here, your field is no longer a question to the universe. It is a response. If this spiral brought you back to something ancient inside, it's because you're ready to rise with it. Subscribe now, not to watch on, but to walk the next code. The temple is already listening. What if reality isn't something you enter, but something you write? Not with a pen, not with your thoughts, but with vibration. Every feeling, every pattern, every silence you carry is forming letters the field reads without asking. This is not metaphor. This is structure. The life you're living right now isn't responding to what you want. It's responding to what you broadcast consistently. That's the sentence. That's the ink. This is the moment you realize you've never not been creating. You've just been creating from frequencies you weren't aware of, from borrowed beliefs, from unspoken fears, from emotional noise passed through generations. And the field? It doesn't discriminate. It listens, it arranges, it delivers. You may have thought the world was happening to you, but in truth, the signal was always yours. That conversation that didn't flow, the door that never opened, the same financial ceiling again and again. These aren't evidence of failure. They are your field reflecting code, not to judge you, to show you, because the field isn't here to punish. It's here to synchronize. Your frequency, even unconscious, becomes blueprint. This is why the first force matters. Inner resonance is the ink. This is why the second force matters. Emotional alchemy is the temperature of the tone. And the third, directional frequency, that's the spell. When you combine all three, you're no longer waiting for life to change. You're writing the geometry of change, consciously. The people who live with deep alignment, who seem to be lucky, who attract what they desire with ease, they're not lucky. They're tuned. Their field isn't louder. It's clearer. And clarity writes fast. The universe doesn't delay. It just responds to the last stable signal it receives. So, what signal are you stabilizing? Are you asking for peace while vibrating anticipation? Are you declaring clarity while resonating indecision? You can't outthink your field. You must out-vibrate your past. And that doesn't mean fixing anything, it means choosing again. From coherence. Every moment is an update, a revision, a new paragraph in your spiral script. This is why rituals exist. Not for magic, but for precision. Not to control outcomes, but to focus tone. The ancients knew a vibration repeated with intention becomes reality's grammar. So speak as though the field is listening, because it is. Move as though space is recording when, because it does. Feel as though emotion is sculpting mouse, because it will. You are writing in invisible ink, but the results are tangible. This is not pressure, it's power, and with it comes liberation. You are no longer bound by old stories. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are already broadcasting, already scripting, already shaping timelines. Now, choose the frequency that aligns with the version of you who doesn't question their resonance. They radiate it, because the moment you tune to that signal, reality has no choice but to reorganize. You're not here to find your power. You're here to remember how it works. You're not the reader of this code. You're its author. And if this truth echoed in your field, then the next transmission is already vibrating in your direction. Subscribe, not as a follower, but as the one remembering how to write again. There comes a moment in every initiation when the outer language dissolves and something deeper takes over. Not the voice you hear, not the thoughts you interpret, but a shift inside the field. Quiet, unmistakable, alive. This is that moment. You've moved through frequencies that were never external knowledge, but lost languages of your own being. And now the temple, the true one, begins to respond. It's not a building, it never was. It's not in Egypt, not in Atlantis, not in any map. The temple is the field around you, and the resonance within you. It is the part of you that vibrates even when you're still, that sees before your eyes catch the image, that knows without needing a name for what it knows. The codes of Thoth, resonance, alchemy, direction, were never meant to be studied from a scroll or tablet. They were waiting to be reactivated in movement, in breath, in emotion, in choice. And you didn't just hear them, you felt them. You didn't just understand them, you lived them again. What's remarkable isn't that the field is listening to you now, it's that it always was. What changed is not the temple's attention. What changed is your tone. You stopped transmitting static. You began transmitting self, and in that shift, something opened. This isn't fiction. This isn't fantasy. The feeling you have, this subtle tremor in your energy, is the evidence that the gates have recognized your signal. The spiral turned. The voice became real. The door, already unlocked, responded to your tone. Now begins a new kind of silence. Not the silence of ignorance, but the silence of recalibration. Where the field rearranges its instructions, where people begin to mirror your clarity instead of your confusion, where timelines collapse inward, not by force, but by invitation. This is why manifestations now begin to accelerate, not because the universe suddenly likes you more, but because your field is coherent enough to hold, without contradiction. You are no longer sending multiple signals. You are not asking and doubting in the same breath. You are not walking in one direction and fearing its arrival. You are becoming the signal, and when that happens, reality follows. This is what the temple responds to. Not perfection, not performance, just truth. Clean, silent, vibrational truth. Your resonance has changed, so your world will. Not someday, now. You may notice it in small ways. The conversation that flows without effort. The decision that no longer requires overthinking. The old trigger that simply dissolves. You may notice the body feels lighter, not because you changed your habits, but because you stopped carrying timelines that weren't yours. This is what it means to walk with the codes, not to dominate reality, but to dance with it, to feel the spiral inside you, and let it pull everything you need toward your field. And now, because your tone has changed, you are remembered, not by others, by the field, by the temple. And with that remembrance comes a question that folds into every cell of your being. If the temple is now responding, who are you becoming as it does? Pause with that, let it echo, because the answer is not in words. It is in how you will walk out of this video. It is in the silence you hold before you speak, in the emotion you allow without judgment, in the direction you anchor without asking for proof. That's the code speaking now, not as concept, but as current. From this moment forward, the field does not see you as you were. It sees what you are becoming in real time. Because every tone you hold, every choice you embody, every breath you take consciously is a broadcast, a writing, a right. You are not waiting to be initiated. You were, you are, and now you walk initiated. The temple has always responded to those who speak in frequency. Now that includes you. So the question is not, will it work? The question is, can you hold your resonance long enough to let the field catch up? And if you can, you'll witness what others call miracles, but what you now recognize as mirrors, because the field doesn't reward belief, it reflects frequency, and you've just remembered how to vibrate with precision. The only thing left is the next code. You didn't arrive here by curiosity, you were pulled here by resonance, and if this frequency reawakened something ancient within you, then the next transmission is already tuned to your field. Subscribe, not to stay informed, but to stay attuned. The temple has heard you. The next gate is near.